length is actually the length of the string, which is 4 in this case, right? And then so we start with k equals 0, and then we want to actually loop through the length of the array. And every time we actually increment the k. So k starting with 0, right? Sorry for my writing. And then we actually take the character out. Chart at, remember chart at actually is a chart at get the character from this index, right? So um, index is 0. So in here 0, and get 0 get the character. So in here will be h, and then we check if the character is between 0 digit and 9, right? We talk about this in the if statement. If it is between, then we actually increment the counter, right? Then actually and when it's done with this iteration, we actually do a k plus plus, and then k equal to 1, then we extract this one out. So, so the next character will be 1, and 1 is between 0 and 9, so we increment it. Now it become to 1. And then once it's done, then we increment to 2, right? Move to 2, index to 2, and get the number 2 character. And 2 is actually between 0 and 9, so we increment it to 2. And go back, k equal to 3. Get A. A is not between this 0 to 9, so we end up, we go back here. So k equal to 4, right? And then check is 4 less than 4, which is false. It will come back here. So having for loop, we can pretty much, you can always remember having for loop. If you look through the string, you can always start with 0 because string index is 0 and always less than the string length. Then this way, and then this way you can always go through the string one by one character. If the Boolean, so in here, if the Boolean condition start off as false, then for loop never execute. So what does that mean? So remember the for loop start with initializations, right? Set I equal to 10, execute 1, and then check if is 10 greater than 19. False, right? If it's false, it will exit right away. It's done. But you never execute this. So there will be some compilation error that you may experience. So how it works is, remember, we have integer here. We declare integer variable inside the for loop. Declare it. So this is all okay, right? But when you actually try to use J is, so think about J is inside this for loop, right? You declare J in here. You you make you declare J in this room. Let's say think about it's different room in different houses within braces. You declare J, you give birth to this variable J within this for loop braces. You can use it within these braces, but when you try to use it outside, it doesn't work, right? So just think about braces, it's like the house boundary, right? So if you actually, um, let's say you make a piece of roast beef in your house, right, within the braces. Yeah, you can eat anywhere, you can use anywhere that roast beef anywhere in the house. But when you're outside the house, which is outside the braces, you can no longer eat it, right? Your neighbor cannot grab your roast beef from you. So braces, we'll talk about these topics more, right? About scoping, but just have an idea. You need to have an idea about if we declare integer here within these braces, right? Within the for loop, it can only use within this for loop. If you try to use it, you have a compilation error, okay? And of course, we talk about if you actually have it outside, then you can actually use it, no problem. You can actually use some here, right? Use it, no problem. So for this line, we also need to deal with another problems here. So remember, semicolon is the end of the statement. So if you have a semicolon here, it actually means that the the this is the end of the for loop, right? And when you try to access this k, this braces is no longer part of the for loop because you ended here, right? When we talk about if statement and while loop, we talk about this kind of error, right? So make sure that don't put a semicolon here, right? This braces, and you whenever you put a semicolon, is end of the statement. Okay. So in here, let's just go through the code. We initialize sum equal to 0. We have an integer variable k. We start with a for loop. We actually have it for k equal to 10, k less than equal to 19, and k plus plus semicolon. So this is ending it. And then when we actually do execute this line, remember the previous error? These braces, sum equal to sum plus k, is no longer part of the for loop because for loop already ended with semicolon. However, there's no compilation error at all. The reason actually why there's no compilation error is because you declare k outside, not part of the for loop. So this statement can get access to k, no problem. Okay. So this does not create a compilation error, but it doesn't do a sum either because for loop is done here. This braces is not part of the for loop. You try again, I try to actually write those code, put those code into Eclipse, and then try to run it and experience it.
So the sum, the one where it says sum equals sum plus k, it would have to be before the braces close off.
Yeah, so you don't need to. You want to actually, if you want to actually get a sum between 10 to 19, you need to remove the semicolon. Is what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. So while versus for loop, so we usually use for loop when we have a number of iterations. We know how many times we need to iterate. So just like how many times we need to iterate a string, right? String has the length. We for while loop, we actually use it when the number of iterations is unknown. However, it really depends up to your preferences. Some professor actually restrict you to use for loop for certain type. I don't. As long as the coding works, for loop and while loop is interchangeably. So let's take a look at this code. So why does this loop generate one-time error? If you actually put this code in here, it will crash. Any idea why? Anyone? So if you don't know, then let's walk through the code, right? So we have string A, B, C, D, E, right? So we start with k equals 0, k less than equal to, what is the string dot length? What's the value of string dot length? String dot length? What does it return? 5, correct, it's 5. Okay, so let's walk through the code one by one, right? That's how we do it. K equals 0, okay. Is 0 less than equal to 5? True. Execute here, right? So print out string dot chart at 0. What is it? So 0 here, right? So print out A, right? Get 0. And then you go back here. K plus plus, so K equal to 1. 1 less than equal to 5, correct? True. Execute. So K equal to 1. So the next thing is print out will be B, right? You guys so far so good. And then you go back to the loop again. K plus plus, so K equal to 2, right? 2 less than equal to 5, true. Execute. Print out K, right? So K equal to 2, so you C. When it's done, you go back. K plus plus is equal to 3. Is 3 less than equal to 5? True. Execute. So it's 3, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3 is D. So print out D. Okay. So execute again. I'm running out of room here, but K plus plus. So K equal 4. Okay. 4 less than equal to 5? True. Execute this line. So it's K equal 4. So it's E. Right? So and then we should go back. All right, one more time. K plus plus. So it'll be 5, right? 5, is it 5 less than equal to 5? True. Execute, right? String dot chart at 5. What is 5? Is there 5 on this string? Is the index of 5 exists?
No.
No. That's correct. So if 5 doesn't exist, then it will crash. It will just have all the exceptions and red in Eclipse. So it will print out A, B, C, D, E, and then whole bunch of red statement coming out with error exceptions. So you guys, so now you understand why you have a one-time error. How can we fix it? Anyone? Anyone how to fix this? Such a very simple fix. Very good. Exactly. All you need to do is remove the equal. You fix it. So you make these kind of mistakes, right? Which is completely fine to make these kind of mistakes because you learn from it. So, okay. So in here we talk about it, right? So we have a semicolon, right? So this for loop doesn't do anything, right? There's no braces. You just do a for loop. You just keep looping 9 times. times, doesn't do anything. The reason why it doesn't perform a compilation error is because k is declared outside, right? It's not declared inside this for loop. That's why when we are accessing the k, we can still access it. So do you guys know why we have a compilation error here?
The semicolon?
No. The reason for there's a compilation error. Semicolon is fine, right? This for loop doesn't do anything, right? You're just looping. The reason why there's a compilation error is because we are trying to access k, but k is declared in here. So when you declare in k within the for loop, you can only use it within the for loop. So semicolon already end the for loop. So, okay. So you need to make sure that if you want to use k outside the for loop, you need to declare k here. And then don't have double declarations. We'll talk about this more tomorrow for for loop. So but for loop, you can have multiple counters. So so in here, the initialization sections, so far we've been just using one variable. You can actually have multiple ones, separated out by comma. So in here, for loop, you can actually, when you set it up, you can actually use set up I equals 0 and j equal 2. And the second sections is the Boolean expression, right? The Boolean expression can be anything as long as we return true or false. So in here, we perform I plus I plus j. As long as I plus j is less than 11, we will execute the for loop. And then the third section is the incrementer. So we can actually have how to increment. It's up to us, right? You can actually increment I plus plus and j equal to j plus 2. Or you can actually do something like this, right? You can do j plus equal to 2, right? You can do that. So we can definitely do multiple, more than one, right? More than 2 is fine. So okay. So again, we'll talk about it more tomorrow. So let's take a 10 minutes break, and then we'll talk about labs. And I also want to talk about how to debug using Eclipse. I notice many of you don't know how to do when there's a problems in the code. So now with more understand a little bit more coding, the structure of coding, I need to teach you how you can debug, how to figure out when you encounter problems in the code, how can you figure out how to debug it. So, okay. So we resume. So simple integer, and then now the following. So let's talk about labs. So the two labs that I want you to work on. First, I want you to write a program using a for loop to print out the following. Print out 0 to 9 using a for loop. So you basically need to loop do it 10 times. Okay. It's very simple. The second lab is you need to write a program using for loop again. You need to prompt the user to enter an integer. And then you need to print out all the even numbers from 0 to such integer. Output is similar to the following. So first, you actually ask the user to enter an integer. So if I enter 11, I need to print out all the number from 0 to that integer, just all the even numbers. So I'm starting with, because 11, then I start with 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 using a for loop. Okay. So let me talk about Eclipse. So any of you actually look into Eclipse tutorial about breakpoints? Anyone? Yes, no? So it is available since the beginning of the course. The Eclipse tutorial is in the home page of Canvas. Underneath quick links, there's Eclipse tutorials. So the beginning of tutorial, we talk about how to set up Eclipse step by step. I think all of you should know by now how to create projects in Eclipse. Now I want to actually show you how to do breakpoints. So typically when you use Eclipse, you can just run and you see the output, and then when you see the output is not matching what you want, you say, "Oh, I don't know what to do," right? So typically, so far what you could do is you could put print statement, right? System.out.print on after each line, and then see whether the values or the variables match what you are looking for, right? That's that's what you typically do, I assume, right? Yes, no? Yeah, no? Okay. So now I will show you another way to do debugging, figure out how to figure out what's wrong with the code um, by using breakpoints and using Eclipse. So this is one of the reasons why actually I push for Eclipse. Not that many IDE has all this full feature. So what are breakpoints? So breakpoint is something to do with you can actually ask the program, ask Eclipse to stop at any lines of code during execution. You don't need to wait until the end of the code, end of the finish, right? You can actually have it stop any line and then let you inspect what is happening, right? So let's look at that. So I will go to the slide, couple slides, and then I will talk about I will actually exercise the live section with you. Then during the lab time, I want you to actually all experience Eclipse because you need to learn. I mean, I encourage you to learn how to use this breakpoint for debugging because once you actually encounter problems during homework or assignment, you need to know how to figure it out. And this breakpoints techniques pretty much applies across the board in computer science. You may not be using Eclipse, but the concept is actually the same. Um, so I'll go through the slides and then we'll talk about Eclipse. We'll go to the live sections. So breakpoint, in Eclipse, you should see in your code, there's a blue bar right here. So that blue bar corresponding to every single line of code. Let's say if you want to set a breakpoint is actually somewhere you ask Eclipse to stop at that line. You can right click on any point, right click, and you see toggle breakpoint here. You select that. Then after you set a breakpoint, then instead of typically you use run, right, and run, right, or control function 11. In this case, after you set breakpoints, you want to do run and debug. Okay. Then it will still equal to execute the program. And when it execute, when it reach the lines of code that you set a breakpoint at, you could turn into this layout and change it such that highlight the line that you set the breakpoint at. Everything stops. And we'll talk about universal call stack, but here's interesting thing. Here's the variable that all the variables for this program during execution. So it will show you what the values of each variables are. It show you here. You no longer need to do printf everywhere. You can actually see what is inside of each variable. And after that, then if you want to continue to execute line by line, you can click run. There's a whole bunch of control here. Again, there are much more, but right now let's learn a couple of important things. You learn step over. You click on step over. Don't worry about step into yet because you don't know yet. So just worry about step over. Function 6. And step over, basically, it will execute line by line. Okay. And you see what's happening. And you can click on resume. Resume basically just, okay, I will just finish rest of the code, right? And you can terminate, basically stop the program, stop the execution. Don't worry about step into. So step over, it will again release all the variables here. So now, any question about the concept? Now I will show you some live sections here. Okay, you should be able to see my code, correct? Okay, so so this is one of the exam assignment that you guys do. Is my solutions, right? So 6 circles, remember? So I want to actually see. I want to set a breakpoint. So remember, there's a blue line here, right? See that? Okay. So I want to set a breakpoint right here, right on line 15 or line 16. Right click, toggle breakpoint, and you should see a blue dot here, right? Okay. You can clear out the breakpoint by toggling again. You can clear it out. Okay. You don't have to always remain with the breakpoint. So after set breakpoint, I basically say, hey, I want to execute this program, but I want to stop here because something's wrong with my calculations, right? And then you can see, okay, I go to run, debug, right? Remember to follow the slide, click on debug, execute the code. And when you see this, you click switch, the switch. So now it stopped at this line, right? You set a breakpoint at. It show you all the variables in this windows, okay? And then the console remain the same, right? So it actually will ask you to enter the radius, right? So I enter, let's say I enter 30, right? Enter. So it stopped there because I don't execute it yet. So I need to step through the code, right? So I need to step over. So I execute the next line. I try to execute the next line. Notice I enter 30, radius 1 is equal to 30 now. You see that, the variables? right? So now I continue. So now it stopped at this line, the green highlighted line. Then I can continue on running, executing. So I say, okay, step over f function 6. Okay, I need to enter another one. So 150, and then F6, execute the next line. So, and then you guys see it right here. The variables continue to have 150, or just put on enter. And then continue this line. And then I'll calculate angle in radius 1 equal to this, right? So I will step over, execute the lines of code, step over. You see here, I execute that, right? The variable contains the number. And then if I continue to execute, the next line will be arc length 1, right? So if I execute, step over, arc length 1 is equal to this. So in here, it's very powerful, right? So you don't need to actually figure out, oh, what's happening. You don't need to print it. You don't need to do anything. You just see, well, there's actually see the values, right, of the variables. Execute the lines of code, step over. You see here, I execute that, right? The variable contains the number. And then if I continue to execute, the next line will be arc length 1, right? So if I execute, step over, arc length 1 is equal to this. So in here, it's very powerful, right? So you don't need to actually figure out, oh, what's happening. You don't need to print it. You don't need to do anything. You just see, well, there's actually see the values, right, of the variables. And then you say, hey, I want to actually I want to look at the average, right? And it's a breakpoint here, right? It's a breakpoint, the average. And I don't want to deal with all this, right? I just say, want to execute, just run and resume. And then just so after I finish all the executions, right? Then I set a breakpoint in this line. You stop in here. You calculate, add it up, and then I do a step over. Then let me see where's my average. My average radius right here, right? And I do a performance of divide by 6. So I run, step over. So radius is become 19.6666, right? Right? Then I know exactly is my average radius correct or not. One thing is very, very powerful. You can actually change any of these values of these variables in the debugger. So let's say I want to test out average. Now I want to finally print it out. Okay, now I know it's calculated to 19.6666. So I want to test out, if I want to change this value, just double click on it. Let's say I want to change to 25.995. Okay, I change it, change the variable. And then let's see, I execute it. Step over. You see, I changed the variable values when I'm debugging, and it output to the value that I change. So in here, you can actually change any values while you're debugging to figure out what happened if I do this, right? What happened in the code? You can do all kind of debugging using Eclipse. Any questions? Don't have to using two line. The problem is, okay, so first of all, do you have any questions on Eclipse? No questions. Okay, so please get familiar with Eclipse. Whenever you ask question about how to debug, I will actually, let me ask you back, have you tried to click step through the code, figure out Eclipse, right? So you need to be part of this learning. So the